Welcome to Straight Talk with me, Noel Lee. This is podcast number 4, a show where we talk to content creators on YouTube. With me today is a special guest. She hails from the United States and she currently teaches in Beijing. Without further ado, let me welcome AleeseLightyear. Hi, Aleese.
Hi, hey. How you doing? What's good? I'm embarrassing myself already, and we just started.
So how was the intro?
It was great. That was really good.
Really?
It was perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've been actually off this show for like 2 weeks, so I'm a bit rusty.
Come on, that's not rusty. You're a professional. You're an OG. It sounded great.
What's an OG, by the way? Original
gangster. Like you started it. Like you the one. You it. You're bomb.
Wow.
OG,
Okay.
original gangster.
Right. So how about yourself, OG? Aleese, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Aleese. I am from Michigan in the United States. I've been living in China for just about 2.5 years. 2 years in Beijing, 6 months in Guangzhou, which was a joke that I played on myself and didn't work out. And I have been a teacher. I started off teaching in a training center, teaching adults only, which was really, really great. Like such an eye-opening experience to life in China, like real authentic life in China. And then I went to teaching high school students, and now I teach high school and middle school drama and critical thinking to an international group of Chinese students who are going abroad in the next few years. That's me. I just started a YouTube channel, and like strangely, after just 2.5, 3 months, I have 8,000 subscribers, which is crazy.
So Aleese, I watched your video, the one that got like 172,000 views. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. How do I feel about it?
Yeah.
Super surprised, but like also deserving, if that makes any sense. I mean, it's not easy to come to China as a first-time teacher and like feel confident and good at your job. So that's number one, that like I just felt confident enough that I was like, I'm about to film everything because I know I'm good at this and I know my students are having a great time. And then second, the amount of time I spend on editing is ridiculous. That's why I cannot be consistent on YouTube. So that was a pretty big surprise that it's done so well, because I am not the type of person who just has the free time to post every week. I work full-time, part-time, plus like I got to talk to my family. I got to go to the gym. I got to hang out with my friends, and I just got to like self-care, and like editing is just at the very bottom of that list. And then on top of that, to just have such a tremendous growth as a new YouTuber has blown my mind. It makes me feel really good. It makes me feel secure. I'm like, yes, I deserve this. I'm killing it. I'm a good teacher. Y'all recognize it. Y'all see, like, you can be from any country, any color, ethnicity, and like, these kids love you. These kids loves me, and I'm not doing anything but being my authentic self and making fun lessons that are engaging, and I just happen to make videos that go along with that. So long story short, the whole just like, I don't know what to call it, blow up of my video, just this one random video of me teaching a class after Chinese New Year. It feels very validating. It feels incredible. Also puts a lot of pressure on me, like, oh, people are expecting more things. Please understand, as like a full-time teacher, it is not easy to shoot a video in your classes, because, I mean, anytime you introduce technology that the students aren't allowed to have on their own in class, just causes a problem. Like, my students aren't allowed to have their cell phones in class. So when I bring my cell phone or my camera and I'm trying to record, they either get really shy or they just want to act crazy, kind of just like any other millennial or teenager when they see a camera. They're like, yo, what up, blah, blah, blah. So to sum that all up, I just feel great, pressured, a little stressed, like, okay, I got to make more videos. This is what people want to see. But what about what I want to make? I don't know.
Right. It's fine. It's fine. I'm also new in this this game of YouTube. Just 2 months.
It's hard. It's so hard to just figure out. Like, I mean, like, I'm an Instagram person because on Instagram I can just be 100% me all the time because my stories disappear after 24 hours. But on YouTube, it's like, it's not that I'm necessarily making the content that I really am passionate about, right? Like, I have to do what people are searching for and what people want to know about. And what they want to know about is what it's like to be a teacher in China, especially as a person of color. Like, we've seen loads and loads and loads of white people be successful at that. And that is what is popular in China and outside of China. So I think a big part of my success is I don't really fit that traditional model of like, oh, look at her. She teaches English in China. She's not blonde. She doesn't have blue eyes. She's got this big hair, a big body. Like, okay. I think that is intriguing to people as well, because there's also, right, like that notion that what is socially acceptable in China and what Chinese students and people respond to and what's expected. And I guess I don't really fit that bill. Like, when people think of a foreigner who goes to China to teach, they don't always think of a girl that looks like me. So that's exciting. And that's fun to motivate people and inspire people and show the truth that, like, hey, you can look like anybody in this world. You can be any color, any gender, any body shape, and you can come and be successful here. So that's exciting.
Right. So you mentioned a few points over there. So let me just touch on something to ask you. So what brought you to China? That's, I guess, the main thing.
You know, what brought me to China?
Yeah.
Instinct. When I let me give you, should I give you a backstory, a short backstory?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we all love to hear a backstory. That's why we're here on Street Talk, right?
Okay.
So, take it away.
You're right. So, a short backstory. I grew up in Michigan and I went to college in Michigan. And after a few years in college, I just kind of signed a major that I just thought that I would be good at, because I'd failed a bunch of classes and I was like, okay, the only major I really qualify for is broadcasting and cinematic arts. What is that? I don't really know. Maybe I'll be good at it. Maybe I won't. Long story short, I started working in TV production at my university. We had a news channel, a TV station at my university. And so I used to produce content for that. From that, I was able to land an awesome internship in New York City at MTV. Then I spent my whole adult life in New York City, working for MTV and various production companies, doing reality TV production. And then after 8 years of working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks and traveling all the time, I just got really burnt out. And I just thought to myself, okay, I love to travel. I love to make money. How can I combine the two? When you type in Google, how to travel and make money, first thing that pops up, teach English. Boom. Enrolled in a program to get my TOEFL certificate. Initially, I wanted to go to South America, but then when I saw the salary, I was like, okay, that's not really realistic for the lifestyle that I live now and I want to continue to live. I began tutoring some local Chinese students in my hometown, and we just became really close, and they just really told me the truth about China. I had no idea. I mean, growing up as a Black American in a very diverse community where I was surrounded by Chinese people, all types of different Asian people, Latinos, Black, white people. I just didn't have very many Asian friends. So I never focused on what life in Asia was like. I'd also never traveled to Asia, so I just didn't really have a clue. I mean, I'd seen Rush Hour 1 and 2, so I was like, okay, that's what China is about. Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. That's really my only reference. But once I really got to know Chinese people and talk to them about their culture and ask a bunch of stupid questions and just to be myself around them, I just felt so comfortable. And they told me, you know, you can make a lot of money in China. You can have a great lifestyle for a really low price. I was kind of sold. So once I finished my TEFL certificate, I was like, all right, I'm going to China. Where should I go? Beijing. That's the spot to be. And 2.5 years later, here I am in Beijing.
Well, that's quite a story. You mentioned also that, you know, you had a bit of an incident story in Guangzhou. What was that about?
Oh, man. I mean, all you need to do is Google COVID-19, Guangzhou, China. And you will see all of the horrendous things that happened to the Black and African community during that time. I mean, to just be 100% real, we know that racism exists in every corner of this world, and China is no exception. Guangzhou happens to be the place that has the largest population of African people. So I think there was probably already a lot of tension to begin with. And then COVID just maybe gave local people a reason to, I don't even know. It just gave local people a reason to retaliate or to show their true colors. I don't know really how to put it. It just gave local people a reason to be xenophobic, because in the news all over China was that foreigners were bringing in the COVID virus. But the honest truth was those foreigners were Chinese people who were living in other countries, because the borders were already closed, right? Like, we know that foreigners from the US, from Africa, from Canada, from South America couldn't come into China at that time. So there's no way that it was actual foreign people coming. It was just Chinese people who were in foreign countries coming over to China. But the way that it was phrased in the media just led to the belief that it was foreign people who were non-Chinese bringing in the virus. So in Guangzhou, that just kind of turned into a very ugly and terrible racist attack on the Black and African community, where there were a few cases in the community that turned into all Africans, all Black people are carriers of the virus. They all need to be quarantined. They all need to be out of this country. They shouldn't go anywhere. Like, they're all a threat to our livelihood and our health, which turned into a huge thing of ban Black and African people from their homes, from restaurants, from public transportation, from absolutely everything. And I had just moved to Guangzhou in March of 2020, and it was the height of that. And I didn't know before I moved there that that's what I was walking into. I mean, I kind of had no idea at all. And once I first moved there, I was in quarantine for a few weeks. And once I got out of quarantine and I moved into my apartment and I registered with the police, which is something that all foreigners have to do in this country, it just turned into a huge problem in the community, that there's this Black girl who's just moved into our community and she's a threat because she's Black. And I just had so many terrible run-ins with the police and so many just pure racist and discriminatory attacks from local people that it it just forced me inside. I mean, I got to the point where I just didn't want to leave my apartment. I didn't want to leave campus. All I wanted to do was go to work and go home. But like, even going to work was really hard because students were complaining to their parents that there's a crazy African girl teaching them and she probably has COVID. And it just became a terrible nightmare. I mean, definitely something I'd never experienced in the US. And we all know the racism that happens in the US, but this was very different from that. And I didn't have anyone. I didn't know anyone. I was new in Guangzhou. It was terrifying. And it just was really, I mean, to put it frankly, it was just really scary. And it was really stressful. And I just honestly didn't know what to do. To describe the fear that you have when you're in a foreign country and you're by yourself and people are visibly attacking you, because it got to the point where like I would just go to the grocery store and people would say really horrible things to me in Chinese, which I understood. People would spit at me. People would pull their children away from me. People would scream just at the sight of me. All of that just became too much for me to mentally handle. And I just didn't know what to do. And it was really difficult, one, to just like internalize that. And two, to tell people about it. It's really hard to describe those moments to my friends and family. And then three, to figure out what do I do next. So long story short, I think I was working that job for about a month and a half, and then I quit. And they gave me a really hard time about quitting and transferring my visa paperwork. But the only option I had at the time was to go back to Beijing, because all of the flights to the US and trying to get back to the US the summer of 2020, it was like impossible, because I was ready. I'd kind of just given up on China. I was like, this is not a safe place for Black people to be. But because I couldn't get back to the US, I was like, Beijing is the second best. That's where I'd lived and made a home for a year. That's where I had a support system and a really good group of friends, Chinese and foreign. And it felt really good talking to them. And they convinced me that, you know, things in Beijing were different and they wouldn't be so bad. Not to say that they weren't bad, because Beijing also had its own bout of xenophobia and still does. But I ended up coming back to Beijing about 5.5, 6 months later after being in Guangzhou. And it was kind of like the minute I touched down in Beijing, a weight was lifted. I felt free. The anxiety was gone. I was surrounded by love and friends and wasn't greeted with fear and screams. I felt happy. I felt safe. And I still do. It's almost been a year since I've been back in Beijing, and things are great here.
Wow, thanks for sharing.
It's not an easy thing to share. I think because of what happened to me in Guangzhou, I've now developed PTSD and a sort of anxiety that I've never had or experienced in my life before. And that is definitely a hard pill to swallow. Like, I still harbor a lot of resentment and anger and frustration towards what happened. And it's like, it's hard to deal with because I'm still in this country. And a lot of times I just wake up and I'm like, why am I still here when all these negative things happen to me? But
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead first. Yeah, finish your thought.
Okay. But I just think that I'm strong. I'm brave. I'm independent. I know how to fight through things. I have the tools to stay sane, even though sometimes I feel like I don't. But the reality of the situation especially with COVID. COVID just complicates everything. Is like from then until now, if I were to go home, I think I would just be in a worse state of mind. Like the US is just now getting its shit together with COVID, right? And it's just Memorial Day and they're like, okay, people don't have to wear masks if they're vaccinated. Meanwhile, it's been a year plus since China has been almost totally back to normal. And I have a job here. I have a livelihood. I make great money. I have an apartment. I have great friends. I have a support system. I'm happy here. If I were to go back to the US, like I was planning to when I was in Guangzhou during the summer of 2020, I wouldn't be in the same headspace that I am now. Like I think when I think about my mental health, going back to the US would have been worse for me because I wouldn't have been able to be independent and to live the life that I wanted there. I would have been at my mom's house, borrowing her car, driving back and forth to my grandma's house with no job, and all of my friends have moved away, and like it just wouldn't have been great. Maybe for about a week it would have been great to been home and to be relaxed, but just every time I think about what I went through in Guangzhou and what my life would be like if I moved back home, it just seems like I would have been in a very deep depression because I wouldn't have been happy. At least here, I have my own sense of freedom because I never know what's going on because I can't read or speak Chinese. So,
but you understand a little, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like I can understand surprisingly like a lot of Chinese, but like, can I speak? Heck no.
A little bit?
I mean like bu yao, wu yao jiga, bu yao mu gu. Like, what does that even mean? What did I just say?
You said you don't want this, and
yeah,
I don't know what
want this. I don't want this. Don't touch me, bu yao mu wu.
Oh,
right?
wow.
I can count. Yeah, don't touch me. Surprisingly, I have to say that quite a lot in China.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's just a lot of people.
不要碰我. 不要碰我.
I say more.
Yeah, no, more is more like it's nobody will more, right? 碰, 不要碰我 is a better way to tell them, you know, like back off, right? 不要碰我.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the Chinese lesson. I didn't know.
No worries.
I just asked my students and they're like, yeah, say this. And I know everything they teach me is like super insensitive and rude. And
so am I right to say that, you know, when you were in Guangzhou, you had it in your mind that you're going back to the States? Was that like the thing you were thinking?
I was just, my mind was all over the place. It's almost hard for me to think about what my mindset was there because I'm the type of person where I, like, the minute I leave, I just kind of push it all to the very back of my mind. And it becomes a very distant memory. It almost feels like 20 or so, opposed to nearly a year ago. But I guess I just had in my mind that this isn't forever. This isn't my reality forever. It's not going to last forever. Things are going to get better. And having a positive outlook, having something to look forward to really helped me to cope with reality.
Would it be right for me to say that you experienced this for like a month or more than a month when you were in Guangzhou?
No, I experienced this for a good 6 months.
6 months. Was I right to say you said that you came to China in March of last year, right?
I came to China in March of 2019.
Oh, 2019. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. And then I moved to Guangzhou in March of 2020. From Guangzhou back to Beijing in August of 2020.
I see. So, wow, 6 months you stayed in Guangzhou during COVID situation. Obviously, there was a lockdown, I guess. Or was it a lockdown or was it like a...
There was a mild lockdown when I first got there, but it ended probably about 4 weeks later.
All right. So you weren't evicted from your place of rental, right?
No, I was.
Okay.
I wasn't evicted.
There were stories of people being evicted from their place of rental. Right?
Yeah, I wasn't evicted. I was just forced into another very long-term quarantine. So basically, when I moved to Guangzhou in March from Beijing, I had to just do the mandatory hotel quarantine for 2 weeks, which is what everyone in the country had to do if they were traveling from province to province. And then once I moved to my apartment and I registered with the police, and the police realized that I was a Black person, they then came to my apartment after I lived there for about 2 days and said, because you are Black and you have probably been exposed to other Black and African people, you need to go back into quarantine for up to 20 days. Which
was this like a group of policemen, one policeman, two, or
no? This was like 3 policemen, 3 or 4 policemen.
Was there a policewoman among them?
No. And I mean, it was me, the police, and one representative from my school who could speak English and Chinese, but wasn't really communicating to me what was going on. And I could understand a few words, and I could understand quarantine, Black person, 14 to 20 days. That's what I could understand.
Did you feel from the way the policeman was speaking to your school representative that there was any hostility, or they were just like doing their best to convey the message? What was your feeling then?
I don't know. That's a hard question, because I was so nervous because this was when people were being evicted. Like, I wasn't sure what was going on, right? Like, I mean, I was fresh out of quarantine. I just became aware of the real situation where people were being evicted. And then all of a sudden the police want to speak to me. And I wasn't sure, like, if they were going to have someone who spoke English. The people who I worked with also didn't know me. They just met me like the day before. I didn't really have relationships with these people. I didn't really know what the police wanted. So it was just me being extremely nervous and anxious and trying to prepare myself for anything. I just kind of went in with the mentality as like, don't freak out, don't cry, just like stand there and just try to pay attention. And hope that the girl who can speak English like translates a little bit to me, which she didn't really. It's also like I just don't really have that much memory of how it went down, because it was very quick and I was very nervous, also very scared. And it was just kind of like, hey, you're going to be in quarantine for up to 20 days.
Right.
And also the police need to take a photo with you. And that kind of felt, but I just got out of quarantine. Why should I be in quarantine again? Right. I don't know anybody. I haven't been anywhere. We all have these health code apps that track where we've been. You can check this. Like, why? I don't understand why I need to do this. But I'd also been in China for long enough to know not to question certain things, because it's not really going to get me anywhere, but in deeper trouble.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, sad, that's the reality of it, like, yeah. So I just kind of was in shock when they told me that I had to go in quarantine again. And then they were like, oh, hey, can we take a photo with you? That was a strange request because it was also half in English, and they were really excited about it. And as a foreigner, I'm used to a lot of Chinese people wanting to take photos with me. So that was just a whole nother thing of like, do they want to take a photo with me for fun?
Well, were they smiling? Were you guys posing or what?
They were smiling.
Okay.
They were like,
oh, okay. So who's phone?
Me. It was 2 police officers who were like, can we take a photo with you?
With using whose device?
Using their phone. Okay. And I was like, wait, if you're going to take a picture, like, I should document this too, because I don't know. I was just like, I should document things. So I also have a photo of this.
Okay. That's good. That's fair, right?
Yeah, because I'm like, this is I don't know what's going on here. Like, here's my phone. And
did you find out later on what it was for?
No, I never found out what it was for.
Did you hear from other people what it might have been for?
Nope.
Okay.
Never
there's some theories floating around. So since I can't verify it, I wouldn't, talk about it.
Yeah, you're right. But like, I've had other instances in Beijing where like the police have come to my apartment to check, right? Like to do the very standard foreigner check. Like, hey, do you match the person on the passport? Does anyone else live here? And they ask very basic questions, like taking a photo then to prove like, hey, here's this foreigner lady and here's the 3 police officers that came to check. But they weren't like posing or anything. So this felt almost like a mockery. It was definitely, I just was so angry because I felt like after all of this, I've been in quarantine already for 14 days and you're putting me in another quarantine. And I've literally been in this city for 16 days. 2 of those days have been out of quarantine and you're putting me right back in. And then you have the audacity to come stand next to me and throw up the peace sign and to take a photo and say that it's official? What can I do, in that situation? I don't know anybody. I don't know anything. I'm like, everything is brand new. And it's also COVID times. And it's at that time so difficult for foreigners to get any information, especially I just popped up in this new city. I'm not in any WeChat groups. Like, I don't have any resources. I don't know what's going on. And all of these things, it just happened so quickly and it was so intense. It just felt instantly like, this is not right. This is not where I need to be. This is not safe. And this is messed up.
On hindsight, how do you feel about it now?
Ooh, tough question. Tough question. I don't know. I'm still processing it. Like, I don't know how to feel about it, to be honest. I mean, I've been in China long enough to understand that sometimes people don't act and show their true emotions. They just do what they're told. I can't blame someone for that. I can't be mad at someone for doing what they're told without realizing the repercussions or understanding how it affects someone else.
I think this applies to everywhere else in the world.
Of course. Yeah, that happens in every single country. Yeah. Where it's like you have people who work for the higher ups and it's like they don't necessarily understand the gravitude. Is gravitude a word?
Gravity? The gravity of the situation?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah. They don't understand the gravity of the larger situation.
And you are the English teacher.
Yeah. I know. Can you believe it?
Joking.
Like a native speaker. No, it's not a joke. My English is not great.
Right.
But
let me just share with you a bit of my experience as well, because I was in Xinjiang.
Please.
Right, I was in Xinjiang. I was in Kashgar. They call it Kashi. And also there was a policeman who was, taking my details, spending time talking on the radio and because in my mind, they took my details at the railway station. They took my details at the railway station. When I left the railway station and went for my COVID test and then back to the city where I was going, I was contacted again by phone to say, hey, meet me at where, right? And then the policeman came again and he was with his partner and he was checking what they have already checked, in my opinion, at the railway station, at the COVID test center, and now this other guy, But when I took a step back and I thought to myself, they're just doing their jobs, right? They're not the ones making the decisions. Right. So I have to be empathetic that they are doing their job. There is no point for me to try to reason or try to get out of it in an expedited way, because it will be over after all. right? Whether it's 10 minutes,
Yeah.
30 minutes, it will be over. So so there's a way of
Yeah.
me saying that maybe in this case, less is more. And that if somebody just, if I'm just doing less of something and let him do his job, then let's just get on with it, because after all, we are
Right.
foreigners in a foreign land, right? We are not,
Yeah.
we don't own this place,
100%.
right? So although
Yeah,
I really I really empathize with your situation that you experience in Guangzhou, because a lot of the, I guess, the anti-China crowd is using what has happened in Guangzhou specifically to pick on China. And before we came on the show, I promised you not to talk about controversial subjects, but you brought up the subject. I hope this is not controversial,
I know.
right?
I know.
Yeah, but I think that is straight talk. So I think it's good that we're having the straight talk.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not necessarily controversial. It is what it is.
Right.
I mean, it's one of these things that, like, I actually wish it was more controversial. I wish more people talked about this. It's like in countries where the general population looks the same, it is almost second nature for them to question anyone who doesn't look like them. Why would they not? I mean, could you imagine living in a world where almost 9.5 out of 10 people look exactly like you, have had the same background, the same upbringing as you, and then all of a sudden you see someone different and you don't understand them and they don't understand you? Yeah, you're going to question the hell out of them. You want to know why, how, when, where, who, all of those things. It takes someone mature, takes someone level-headed, and
Critical
takes
thinking?
someone, who a critical thinker to be okay.
You teach that?
Yeah, I do teach that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm in a situation and I need to get the best result for myself. How do I do that? I literally can't communicate with these people, right? And even when there's someone there who speaks English, it's like there's no guarantee that you're talking to them and they're communicating your feelings and your words to these other people. And be strong and figure out how to fight within yourself without ruffling too many feathers to get you in trouble. Does that make sense?
Well, I feel where you're coming from. And with that, I think I would respond in a way that I think, in my opinion, people around the world, they are the same and they are different as well. And it applies to everywhere in the world. You have the good guys and the bad guys. So even in Singapore, where I come from, there's the good guys and the bad guys, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't. Otherwise, there'll be peace and harmony all the way. I mean, there is peace and harmony, just that, you know what I'm saying, right? There's still the good guys and the bad guys. Just that in a bigger place, then there'll be more good guys and more bad guys. I think the fact that you mentioned earlier in the show that you experienced the racism in China, and you mentioned yourself that racism is all over the world. And I would like to add that it's a personal thing as well. I don't think it is something that is associated with any particular country or race. It's just something that is a personal thing. And when you talk about personal thing, it's actually more of a psyche thing, how the person receives what he or she is seeing. Again, I grew up in Singapore, where it's a multiracial society, and back in the day, and I talked about this in my very first video on YouTube, that I didn't realize growing up that there are different races. I just thought that you look different and that's it. You're just still my countryman, and around the world there will be people like that, and we're just from different countries. That's just the way it is. Perhaps in China, it's not as open, such that you have so many different people coming in, but you do have pockets like yourself, and over in Shenzhen there's an expats community, and like I'm sure there's all over, there's pockets here and there. It's just that it's not a country that's totally open to the extent that everywhere you see, you get a good mix of different race. It's
Yeah.
still predominantly Chinese, just like in the States, it's still predominantly Caucasian, right? So at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we don't like what we see in the news, and again, the news tend to exaggerate things. That's why it's good to hear from you on a first-hand basis what you experienced.
Because it's kind of like, I just wrote a long post about this on Instagram today, where exactly what you said, like racism exists everywhere, where there's people who are very extreme and people who are not extreme at all. And that also is the case in China, where in Guangzhou, I experienced the most extreme amount of racism that I have ever experienced, even my own country. But then I came back to Beijing and I experienced racism, let's not get that wrong, on a regular basis, but it is not as extreme as it was in Guangzhou. I think in China, what exists is like this racism that they like to mask as curiosity. Things that happen to me on a regular basis are literally at least once or twice a week on the bus, on my way to work, a stranger grabbing at my hair, saying, "Jendama, Jendama, is it real? Is it real?" And I'm always like, you're grabbing at it. You tell me. Like, your hand is in my hair asking if it's real. If you can do this, girl, it's real. That happens in Beijing all of the time. Other things that happen.
I mean, do you think these people are mentally sound, or?
I don't know. This is somebody's grandma. This is somebody's mom. Who knows if they're mentally sound or not? I mean, I think in their idea, yes, they are. And then they see me and they are overwhelmed with ideas and opinions and questions. And the first thing that pops up into their mind, like a child, is touch. I learned by touching things, but like, no, we don't do that to other people. That's disrespectful. I mean, I always have the same reaction where I'm like literally slapping someone's hand or pushing them away, or like yelling at them in Chinese or in English and walking away. My reaction is always the same. When I'm in the classroom and like things like this happen, my reaction is still the same. And then I calm down and I tell my students, look, this is what it is. And then we have a lesson about the polite ways to ask people about their hair when you're interested and you just want to give a compliment or you have questions. Like, that idea that it's okay to put your hands and ask all of the questions to someone who doesn't look like you is disrespect. And there just seems to be a disconnect with the idea of disrespect when it comes to foreigners and Chinese people, because it doesn't just happen to people of color. It happens to white people all of the time, right? Blonde hair, blue-eyed, red hair white people get the same kind of ignorant curiosity that I get, but maybe a Chinese person is maybe a little bit nicer about it. I've been teaching for 2.5 years now. I've worked at 3 different schools. Always my first 2 weeks to 2 months are just nonstop. It's about my hair, my skin color, my body, my parents, my family, my country.
And these are students who are like what, 16, 17 years old?
So I started off teaching adults 18 and up who were asking these exact same questions, and then I moved to high school and middle school. Strangely enough, the adults asked the most offensive and craziest questions, and my high school and middle school students, they just ask once or twice, and then they're like, oh, okay, whatever. They don't care, or they're just like, okay, we get it, cool.
So, well, I mean, how did you handle those offensive questions?
It's very different when you get these questions as a teacher opposed to just like being a human being walking down the street. As a teacher, my job is to educate, and as a foreigner and someone who looks very different than them, I want them to learn acceptance. I want them to feel comfortable, and I want them to be motivated to talk to more people that look like me. but not ask them the same questions that they ask me. So my job as a teacher is to educate them. Like, so I definitely let my students get away with all of that kind of taboo touching and asking. I'll let them ask all of the questions because I would prefer that they ask me, their teacher, than some other beautiful Black woman walking down the street and they just grab at her hair and ask all the questions. And also, if they ask me, then they have an answer and they don't need to ask anyone else. So when they meet other people who look like me, they feel more comfortable to ask them, what are your hobbies? Where are you from? Like, what kind of food are you into? They can ask other questions that don't just attack someone's appearance. So, right. I mean, to me, as a teacher and as an educator, it's like the most important thing is that my students recognize that I am a person of color, not from their country, here by myself, independent, making it work, having a good time, and just being a normal human being living my life here. Especially for young high school students. Like, they consume themselves with Douyin, and they all have VPNs, they all watch Instagram and YouTube. So like, they have a very global perspective of the world, but they don't have anyone to ask questions to. They see all of these things happening in the US and Canada and Australia, and like, a lot of times they're just looking for a foreigner to ask, hey, is this real? Is it really like this? Because at the end of the day, all of my students will move abroad in their 11th or 12th grade year. So it's really important to me to just be my authentic self and not sugarcoat anything, and to show the students, like, I'm just like you. When I was in high school, I was just like you. I worried about the exact same things. Also, hi, I am also someone who left my home country to move to a foreign land, exactly what you're about to do. So we share the same concerns. We have the same trepidation. We have the same hopes. We have a lot of expectations. So let's share those together. And I think through being realistic with my students and being myself and not putting pressure on them, their other teachers, they have felt maybe a deeper connection to me, and have definitely felt like, oh, it doesn't matter that teacher Aleese is a foreigner. She is literally just like us. And that's all that I want my students to see. Because as long as we all agree that we are all part of the human race, that we all have the same thoughts, feelings, loves, and fears, that's what holds us together. That's what bonds us. That's what stops hate. When you realize this is a person just like me who has similar values, similar views. I have so much faith that my students will go abroad and make friends with people of color because they've had me as a teacher. They're not going to be scared to approach people who don't look like them. They're going to be excited. They're like, oh, this person reminds me so much of teacher Aleese. Let me think about all of the things that teacher Aleese taught me about not asking about people's hair or not asking about people's skin color. Like, I don't need to know all of those things. I already know because teacher Aleese taught me. I can just get down to the nitty gritty, like, and know what this person is all about. So that is the main motivation in teaching high school, middle school, and adult students is like, hey, it doesn't matter that we're different colors, that we come from different countries. We're still the same.
What do you think about, I guess a common question where people ask, like, where you're from? More I guess well, not you particular, but I guess this kind of questions when somebody sees somebody else of a different race, right? And we're not exactly sure, because I guess sometimes we want to be polite. We don't want to make the wrong assessment. You know what I'm saying? What do you think?
Yeah.
How do you help somebody to maybe approach this thing, or just simply don't ask? What do you say?
I mean, I think that it's totally okay to ask someone where they're from. Just your reaction shouldn't be shock or awe or surprise. I mean, a really common, very strange, it's so strange to me. So many Chinese people will ask me where I'm from, and I'll say America, and they'll be like, what? What do you mean America? There are no Black people in America. You're from Africa. Meanwhile, like, they love Obama. And I'm like, you guys, Obama is Black and was the president of America. Therefore, why are you asking me why Black people don't live in America when Obama is Black and is the president of America and is from America? Put two and two together. So if you're going to ask someone where they're from, just say, okay, cool, awesome. Tell me about your hometown. Right. I mean, I always teach my students to ask polite follow-up questions. Don't respond with an exaggerated emotion when you hear something that you're surprised about, because that can literally be very offensive to people. Exactly. I mean, it's like, we all know that, right? I mean, you ask a Chinese person, where are you from? And then you guess, oh, I thought you were Korean. I thought you were Japanese. Yeah. They get offended by that.
Yeah.
So just don't do that to other people.
Yeah, it all boils down to education, right? And we all know that, I guess just from my extrapolation, majority of the people, the local Chinese, may not have received that kind of education, or is exposed to different people of different races to make that informed reaction or assessment when meeting somebody. So we have the people who are really knowledgeable, having been educated and know how to handle the situation. And we have the people who are, in a sense, ignorant, but without any ill intentions, right?
Yeah.
So we just have to balance it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of that in China, where it's just people who are so innocently curious that they have no idea that they're being offensive. I think as a foreigner living here, it takes a while to learn that and to understand that, and to not respond negatively or angrily about that. I mean, older generations didn't have the same access to good education that the younger generation does now, right? I mean, so many of my kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers, I also tutor a 5-year-old English. So it's like, here we are in the 21st century, and millions of young Chinese students are being exposed to foreigners and English at a very young age. When just 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, that was not the case. So the people who are our age and older than us now don't understand what it is like for you as a foreigner growing up in your foreign land. They have nothing to relate that to. They aren't doing independent research about what life in America or Australia is really like. And when they see you, they're not necessarily thinking that they should approach you politely, because maybe they don't know how. Maybe they're just like, oh my God, look, there's someone I've never seen before. This is crazy. Look at their skin. Look at their hair. Let me go touch them. Oh my God. So you have to be willing to be an educator. Not all the time, because we have to be realistic. We are humans. There are lots of times where people come up to me and they're like, Pai Jiao, and I'm like, nope, for me. Today is not the. Well, that's fine. There's lots of times where I'm like, okay, let me type in my translator, like exactly what I want this person to know about me. And that's fine. Chinese people are very receptive. I also think very respectful, very honest, and very kind. There are not many times where people approach me and they're negative. If people are approaching me and they have something to say or they have a question to ask, they're usually polite and very nice about it and like feel bad for ruining my day or interrupting me. So if I can take that time and like flip that and also teach them something, so they know the next time they approach that maybe they should say this instead of touching or thinking with their hands. I think it creates a huge value to them and it creates a big memory. Like they're going to remember that for so long. Oh my God, I met this beautiful, nice foreign lady and she taught me this lesson that I'm never going to forget. So it's a strange life living here.
Yeah, well, I hope you are still enjoying it and you're looking forward to more years.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Aleese,
there you go.
I really thank you for your time to come on the show.
Yeah.
We had a very good conversation. I tried to stay away from the controversial topics that you've warned me against, but you got.
And then I just brought it up.
And I think we had a good chat, and hopefully the audience would have learned something. Maybe you can let us know in the comment sections below, and I will put the Aleese's 172K viewed video in the description below. You can check it out. Again, Aleese's YouTube channel link is also in the description below. So go over to our channel and show some love. Click like and subscribe. And until the next Straight Talk, this has been Noel Lee. Thank you very much.